and started to draw his gun, and Dad put his shotgun in his face and said, "Drop to your knees, Clive, or I'm going to blow your head off." Clive didn't move. Clive just stood still, and Dad repeated the same comment and thought, oh yeah, the intel's right. This Clive's just going to be a bit of a mongrel. I'm going to have to deal with him. And his next move was he was just going to hit him with the butt of his shotgun and take him down.
I'm Andrew Rule, this is Life and Crimes. This is the second episode of the remarkable story of Peter Norris, who's just published his book, The Bank Robber's Boy, which I find very striking. And he's been kind enough to share some of his stories with us. And today we're launching the second episode, which takes us from his early days as a little boy to the middle stages where he heads across the Nullarbor with his father, the bank robber, to find a version of a new life and a new beginning, and probably another ending.
Great to be back.
At the end of the first episode, we've got Peter leaving Beltara, the state government institution, and a family turn up and take you in. You are escorted into a house with your own bedroom that was much better than anything you'd ever lived in before.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Where was that?
Yeah, that was just in Kew, just out in the suburb.
Yeah, that's all right. Nothing wrong with
nice,
Kew.
Well-to-do. Yeah, so there was...
Which street, you remember?
I don't remember the street, no. No, I know. I just remember walking to the house and everything was perfect.
Mm.
And there was two boys that had all these belongings that they just completely disregarded, and I was just in awe of the things that they had, all the toys, all the books, all the things. And I was given a copy of a book called The Never-Ending Story.
Yeah, by that family.
By that family, by the mother.
Right.
Yeah, just as an act
of kindness. What was her name?
I think it was Heather, I believe. Yeah, I think.
And were they kind to you?
She was kind to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was...
It was her idea to...
It was her idea.
Yeah.
It was definitely her idea. And I believe he didn't like the idea, so I was made to sit at a separate little table in the kitchen, not with the family. And when their children got ice cream, I sat there kind of with the expectation I might get some, and I remember him just shaking his head saying he doesn't get any. So
you're kidding.
So just treated me a little bit different.
That would seem, again, sort of oddly... You'd think even someone who didn't agree with his wife's decision, etc., wouldn't do that to a kid.
Yeah.
It seems...
it seemed a little cruel, but I just remember...
Perverse.
Yeah, it was. And then this really unfolded, but it was only a couple of days after that we went to a shopping centre and he was taking the kids to a movie, which again I was excluded from. And we're just walking through a shopping centre and I saw this man in the distance, and just the way that he walked, I walk with this, I've never ridden on, but I have this little bow-legged walk.
Yeah.
And my dad had the exact same walk.
Right.
And I saw this man walking away, not towards me, away from me. And I just freaked out and started running towards this man. I said, that's my dad. And the family, this foster father of mine, basically just grabbed me by the collar and dragged me outside and said, you're embarrassing us, you're an idiot. It can't be your father, he's incarcerated. He's in prison. Yeah. And I couldn't be any surer that was him. Yeah. And went to bed that night and I had a bedroom to myself. There was a tap on my window. Can't even recall what time it was, and went to the window and looked down because I was one floor up. And there was Dad standing there in the same clothes that I'd seen that man in at the shopping centre. So he found me, so he was looking for me. I got no idea how he knew where I was.
He was in the right suburb.
But he was in the right suburb.
Pretty good at it. Knew a few things.
Yeah, so I jumped down out of that glass. Dad caught me and a quick hug, and he just whispered, we need to go.
And he just took you?
Just took me, yeah.
And you just vanished from that place? Never saw them again?
Never saw them again.
How long were you at Heather's?
I would have been there for, I reckon, about 7 weeks, I believe.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Not long.
So it was really her way of doing something for sort of a lost kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, temporary a temporary thing, not really a fostering. No,
exactly, yeah. And it was then that, Dad decided it was too hot to stay in Victoria, so we decided to make our way across the Nullarbor. So it was at that time.
Right. So this is now, you're probably 12-ish, nearly?
Still 11. Yeah,
11.
Yeah, not quite 12. Yep.
Your dad,
11.
as you put it, your dad got a car.
Got a car.
He found a Valiant unattended somewhere.
Yes, he did, yep.
And that was no problem to him to wire it up.
No.
Where did you leave from? You remember any of that detail?
We're in the city, actually, right in the city. And I remember being in a cafe. I can't remember the name of the cafe, but I think the other thing that I make really clear in my book, in my story, is just these little moments of kindness. And some of them are really fleeting.
Yep.
But this was one of them where this waitress, like your dad said to me, I'm going to have to leave you here on your own. Now, he was clearly going off to steal this Valiant. Oh,
right.
So he said, I'll leave you here. And this waitress comes over and she said, would you want to order, you'd like something to eat? And I said, I didn't have any money. And she came back and she had this warm kind of blueberry muffin that she prepared for me. And next minute, Dad runs in the door, pretty much says, we've got to go right now. So I'm leaving the muffin and running out the door, but this waitress runs out with us and hands it through the window
of the hot car
as we're driving away. And so it's just these little moments that kind of stick. And
that's lovely. And so you headed west. You remember that road out through Ballarat, I suppose, or something?
Yeah. Yep.
I guess.
Yeah, and then out into the Nullarbor where had some beautiful moments, but also some tough conversations with Dad. This was a really probably a pivotal moment in our relationship in my life.
Old enough and intelligent enough and thoughtful enough to have sort of come to a few conclusions at this age.
Yeah.
What was that pivotal conversation?
Yeah, look, part of it just came out of me being curious and wondering why we were always on the run.
Yeah.
And I think my mind had ticked to the point, well, it's got to be more than just minor discrepancies, or minor crimes if we're constantly moving states. And I said to Dad, just tell me about one of your crimes. And in some ways, I was just trying to get a gauge on the person he was and the things that he'd been up to. And this particular conversation, he told me about a bank robbery that he'd performed in Sydney, and his role was to take care of a particular security guard. Clive was his name, and Clive was known to be a real mongrel and was going to be the problem security guard. They thought the rest of them would just lay down when they're told to, but the feeling was that Clive was going to be a problem, and Dad was given the job in his crew to take care of Clive. And so Dad just tells it as they walked into the bank, balaclavas and shotgun, as expected. The other two security guards, I believe, straight down on their knees, put their guns aside. Clive, as expected, refused to do so.
Right.
And started to draw his gun, and Dad put his shotgun in his face and said, drop to your knees, Clive, or I'm going to blow your head off. Clive didn't move. Clive just stood still. And Dad repeated the same comment and thought, the intel's right. This Clive's just going to be a bit of a mongrel. I'm going to have to deal with him. And his next move was he was just going to hit him with the butt of his shotgun and, take him down. But then he noticed that Clive's eyes were kind of rolling into the back of his head, and then Clive pissed himself.
Yeah.
And then it was that point that he kind of flicked his hand across and hit me on the shoulder in a kind of a jokingly way.
When he's telling you this story.
When he's telling me this story, and he said, and Clive wasn't so bloody tough after all, and had a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
And that was a really pivotal moment in our relationship because I just couldn't laugh. I didn't see anything funny about it.
Yeah.
In fact, all I felt was just this dread in the pit of my stomach, and thinking and I was quite a deep thinker even at 11, that this is a man who's pissed himself in front of his peers.
Yes.
And also has a family to go home to.
Yep.
And the lasting implications of that experience for him and his family could have went on for years or for life.
Of course.
And here's Dad laughing about it.
And that was a moment of insight
yeah.
by a half-grown boy into the realities of what his father was and wasn't.
Yeah, and I'd seen enough. I think I'd seen enough by 11. I'd well and truly seen enough by 11 and experienced, my own horrors at that age to know that that's not what I wanted for myself. I wanted far better. So this was a point where there was a realisation that I loved Dad and I would do anything to spend another day with him, but I would now do anything that I could to not become him.
You go to Perth, and this is the start of the rest of your life in some ways, right?
Yep.
But you go to Perth, you live in a house in Perth, and
with some criminals.
Dad does the best he can. What happened in Perth?
Yeah, so Dad says, look, I'm on the run. I can't earn any money. You're going to have to get a job. I went, yep, no worries. There was always a no worries. By this time, I'd kind of managed to deal with stress quite well as well. Things just didn't worry me.
Yeah.
So, that's okay. What do we have to do? So we walked into the local Kmart in Port Hedland we were at now. We'd made our way up north.
The underworld, as they used to call it up there.
Yeah, exactly right. So the two people that we were sharing a house with were saying they were hiding away from something. So, Dad got the store manager and told them that I was 15, despite being only 11. Again, with his charisma, said, his birth certificate's packed away and some things. We've just moved across from the east. I'll bring that in as soon as I can. And I was given a job. And, initially I just worked, just as a shop assistant, filling shelves and helping customers. And I made the decision to make the most of that opportunity for Dad and I, and put my head down and worked really hard, and sort of didn't get caught up in any of the, the bullshit between workers and all the other stuff that was going on. And it would have only been, I think, 5 or 6 weeks, and I got called in to the office. There was an announcement across the loudspeakers, Peter Reynolds. To come into the manager's office, Warren's office. And I walked in and Warren said, I've got all these feedback forms, Pete, and they're all just amazing. And he said, I haven't sort of seen anything like this for a very long time. How do you feel about taking on the management of one of the departments? You'll have some staff and there'll be an increase in your pay. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to take that. And, and that meant that the little yellow envelope that I took home to Dad every week had a bit more cash in it, which gave us some more choices.
You're about to turn 12.
I was about to turn 12, hadn't turned 12 yet.
This is interesting, and we're not interrupting the story too much, but when you think about children at children's court, I saw some the other day, they've clearly got whiskers and they're driving there, some of them.
Yep.
And you as a 12-year-old were offered your own department to run. Were you really a little child, or were you a self-sufficient, independent thinker?
No, I was a very, self-sufficient, independent thinker at that time. I didn't really bounce anything off even Dad at that point. I kind of just made my own mind up and
you did,
and went with it, which is probably why I succeeded in this role. And even with the management of this department, I just did exactly the same thing. The thing that I found was, and it really hasn't changed today, is just a bit of kindness and good customer service to people. And that put me above everybody else who just was there going about their day, not really having a crack.
Not really trying.
Not really trying. I was able to unload a pallet, 3 times as quick as anybody else and get back to my job. And so again, it was only 4 weeks later and I was handed another 2 departments as some other staff had either been fired or had left. So I was running 3 departments before my 12th birthday. I had a whole team of people underneath me.
This is the God honest truth. Swear on the bank robber's boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is magnificent. And what sort of shop was that?
It was Kmart.
Kmart.
Yeah.
God almighty, isn't it wonderful?
So, and again, there's a store manager, Warren, who, at the time, whilst I was 11, may have been in his mid-30s. So, Warren could still be around as well. So that'd be unreal. So,
I wonder what his surname was. Remember that?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah. Warren from Port Hedland.
From Port Hedland.
And how did that end up? Well, you can guess how it ends up. It ends up with the law catching up with Dad.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And how did that happen? Why did it happen?
So what had happened was one of these criminals that we live with from time to time would come across and pick me up from work and walk me home. Now, I was really wary of this particular person. I'd just been paid with my little yellow envelope, and Dad always said to me I was allowed to buy a couple of comic books. So at the time I used to buy the Archie and Richard Rich comics.
Yeah.
And so I bought one each of those and I had them under my arm, and this individual came to pick me up, and we used to have to walk across this sort of red dust paddock to get to the house. And he stopped me and grabbed me on the arm and just I just had this weird kind of gut feel. And he was asking me about, there was a girl, Jacinta, at Kmart who was nearly 16 who took a liking to me, who thought I was 15.
Yeah.
And she kept inviting me to parties. I kept saying no. Anyway, he said, "Oh, have you done it with that Jacinta yet?" And I just, felt disgusted by that. And I said, just, don't speak to her about that. And then we walked for a little bit more, and he grabbed me in again. And I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "You know what I want." And it hit me that this was a sexual thing.
Yep.
So I threw my comic books down and ran, and I was a really good runner.
Yeah.
As a youth, despite sort of not having much school, but, I could run like the wind. So I ran home, and Dad wasn't home yet in this house, so I barricaded the bedroom that Dad and I shared just with an old wardrobe and laid in there until Dad got home. And at first, Dad could tell I was not myself, and I didn't tell him. And, a couple of hours later, I told him what had happened. I drifted off to sleep and woke up to the sound of breaking glass and sort of walked out into the lounge room, and the two males that we shared a house with, one was unconscious across the coffee table. The other one might as well have been unconscious. He was not moving. He was on the ground in a pool of blood. So Dad had obviously dealt with that. And then we hopped in a car, found somewhere else to stay, and I went back to work the next day, and again had this call over the speakers, Peter Reynolds to the manager's office, and I went, "Oh, geez, am I getting another department? Well, this is great." Walked into Warren's office, and there was two detectives flanking his desk. Yeah, the two guys had dobbed Dad in.
Oh, that's not good.
Can't say for that for sure, but it seems that was what had happened. And
so their code wasn't that strong?
Their code wasn't that strong, no. And then, so Warren sort of came out from around the desk, and I expected him to be angry, but he sort of just looked at me and just goes, "I've just got no idea how you've managed to do this as an 11-year-old. And then I was taken out to the police car. So I sat in the car waiting with one of the police, and one of the detectives, the other one was obviously dealing with whatever had to be done. And Warren came out and he handed me my pay slip, and he said, "You've earned this." So he paid me for the work that I'd done. And it wasn't until later on that night that I'd opened up that pay slip. Yeah. There was 2 extra weeks pay in there for me.
Oh, beautiful.
In cash.
Yeah.
And a little note, which I detail in my book, it just said, "I'm only disappointed that our journey has to end, and you'll make a great leader one day." Signed off by Warren. And today, which is again because of him, not because of his kindness, but it certainly helped that I'm a CEO and lead a team of 100 today. So that's quite nice.
Hi, it's Gary Jubilant here. Do you want a real and raw look inside the world of crime? Well then check out my podcast, I Catch Killers, where I interview people from all sides of the law.
I draw my firearm and I went into fight mode. I wanted to find and confront this gunman.
I'm not getting verbal, am I?
I shouldn't have trusted you. See, I'm trying to open my mind up to defence barriers.
I know, it's just begging to be said.
Yeah, fair call. We have amazing guests every week. Search for I Catch Killers wherever you get your podcasts.
So Dad's been arrested.
Yep.
Yet again.
Yep.
You've been busted as a kid doing a man's job.
Yep.
And so where did you go, and who took you there?
Yeah, so the police took me there. I just went off to a little respite centre I believe it was in Claremont in WA. And by this time I'd already started probably earlier, to get this feeling that I didn't want adults to make choices for me anymore.
Yep.
Even as a state ward of the Victorian government, the choices they made on my behalf ended up as poor experiences. So, after I think realising that I'd had enough of adults making decisions for me, I'd been shipped away by the police to another respite centre, this time in Claremont. I stayed there for one night, and then the next morning, I just grabbed the belongings I had, which again, some photo albums, Tom the Turtle, my teddy bear, and a few belongings, a few clothes, and decided that I was just going to live on the streets for the next few months in Perth.
Yeah.
And which I did.
Yeah.
Went to Kings Park, obviously a big expansive spot in the middle of Perth.
It is.
And interestingly met I suppose not unlike, this code that I said Dad had with his criminal crew, there was a whole crew of homeless kids that, normal society wouldn't certainly at the time, wouldn't have known existed.
Yeah.
And we would steal clothes off people's clotheslines at night time to stay warm. We wouldn't wait for the bread and the milk deliveries that would arrive at the cafes at 5, 6 a.m. in the morning before they open, and we'd grab those and steal those to eat and drink. And whenever, there's certainly myself and another individual, we managed to rob a nightclub safe one evening that was left open, and managed to get a heap of cash and took it back to this warehouse where we were all sleeping, and woke everybody up. And we fed everybody and went into McDonald's, and we ordered 100 cheeseburgers and 50 Cokes and all this. And, I remember the girl behind the counter just looking at me as if I was just having her on, and slapped this cash down on the counter. And, there was this cheer of these 50 homeless kids behind me. So it was this code of, if one of us ate, we all ate.
Yeah.
And to me, that sort of still sticks pretty heavily that, we looked after each other.
How long were you doing that?
I was doing that for a couple of months. That was a moment, just a time where I just needed to remove myself from adult decisions, and it was an unsafe space to be. Yeah. There was lots of moments where we had to run from danger, and, there was sort of lots of different crews of kids getting around, many that weren't as nice and kind as we were. They were out to hurt people, so we managed to talk our way or run our way out of lots of different situations.
And you slept in the park or in the warehouse?
No, a couple of nights we did, but we managed to find an abandoned warehouse and there literally would have been 50 of us who just found our little corner and looked after each other.
And how did that end?
Yeah, I had this pull to get back to family, and I knew that my sister lived in Shepparton, back in Shepparton.
Kelly or Tina?
Tina, my oldest sister. So
Tina, who'd been almost killed on a motorbike at Bendigo before you left Victoria.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a whole other story, but you'd held her hand thinking she was dying.
Yeah, the priest came and said prayers over and last rites, and we expected to lose her, but her.
She pulled through.
Yeah. So at 16, she managed to get special permission to get married. Right. So I suppose where my escape was to just remove myself from adults, hers was to get married to a much older man. I think that was just a way of trying to find security and safety at the time. Of course, that didn't last.
No.
But
surprise.
But at the time, it was the right thing for her. Yeah. So I decided one day that I would hitchhike from Perth to Shepparton. So I started this journey. It's a fair way for a 12-year-old. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I had my 12th birthday whilst I was hitchhiking.
Really? Where was that?
Yeah. Well, I ended up getting caught in Eucla.
Oh, right.
So I'd made my way. But again, talking about moments of kindness, I had, one man in his 50s who picked me up and took me a fair way in the direction that he was going. And before he sort of diverted off a different way, he stopped and bought me a bag of all different types of food and bottles of water and things to take on my journey and just wished me luck. But anyway, I got picked up in Eucla by the police.
Was your name on a list of...
No, I actually think at the time it was probably just an 11-year-old just walking through town with hitchhiking, and someone had probably found that strange. Yeah. Despite
although you did look 15.
I did look 15, yeah. I was quite tall for my age. And anyway, look, and then, the police reported that back to the Victorian government, obviously, where I was a state ward, and they decided then to return me to Victoria anyway, to my sister.
To your sister, Tina, the married one?
Yep.
Where was that? Your Shep?
In Shepparton, yeah. So they actually allowed me to live with her temporarily. So I got what I wanted at that stage.
And that's the end of our second episode with Peter Norris, the bank robber's boy. Next week, in our third and final episode, we will find out what happened when Peter got back to Victoria and was reunited with his big sister, Tina, in Shepparton, which was actually the beginning of another beginning, which was probably the real big one in his life.
Thanks for having me back again, Andrew, and yeah, look forward to coming back and having another chat.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for listening. Life and Crimes is a Sunday Herald Sun production for True Crime Australia. Our producer is Jonty Burton. For my columns, features and more, go to heraldsun.com.au/Andrew Rule, one word. For advertising inquiries, go to newspodcastssold@news.com.au. That is all one word, newspodcastssold. And if you want further information about this episode, links are in the description.